Hi everyone, it's Nicola from Peaches and Cream. Oh my god, how exciting is this? So I've finally put together a series of hair tutorials to be able to teach everyone from anywhere in the world. You're now going to be able to learn my style from in your salon. You might be on the bus on the way to college. So hi to all the young girls out there. I am so excited to be able to inspire everyone. You might even be sitting at home on the couch with your bridesmaids if you're getting married this year. You might be desperately looking for this inspiration for how you're going to have the perfect wedding hair. I'm really hoping to be able to send some really good inspo to you girls as well. This style is one of Peach's most requested looks. It's perfect for anything from a beautiful bride to an elegant prom girl. Even us Scouse girls, we love them just for a Saturday night out. So I'm going to be breaking it down in a simple step-by-step form, sharing with everyone my kinds of hacks on like how to overcome problematic hair. I'm going to be sharing with you tips and little secrets on how to create this peachy perfect look. I'm going to be answering all of the most popular questions that I get asked when it comes down to my style of hair ups, which is mostly how do you make the hair look glossy, how do you hide the pins, how do you keep the hair nice and secure. Everything is covered in this tutorial. So let's talk about the kit. Today we're going to be applying a 20-inch curly ponytail. This is shade chocolate. And when matching the ponytail, what you need to do is take a section from the top of the hair and we're going to blend the ponytail underneath and we're going to run the hair over the top and blend. So you can see the hair actually matches the end of the ponytail. So first of all, I prefer using a tail comb. I always get asked, do I use a back combing brush? But no, I use a tail comb. It's better to get better volume. Bobbles, make sure you use one without a metal piece on. And bun rings, we're going to use nice spongy ones. Make sure they don't have quite tight gaps in between them. We're going to be using 2 today, so I'm just showing you what they look like. Silhouette is my favourite hairspray. I just think it's great because you can brush back through it after you've done it. And my favourite straighteners are called Coralus. They're great because you can change the heat dial on them and the outside of them is like a rubbery feel, so they'll glide nice and smooth. So you can see I'm taking a circular section and I'm combing it through with my comb. If your customer has really thick hair, you need to take this section thicker. This is just basically so that it keeps more of the hair stable, and it will also save you a lot of time when we're actually creating this style because more of the like thickness of the hair will be up in the bobble. If vice versa, your client has got really fine hair, you need to leave more of this out because we need it to make it look like it's the natural hair later on. Make sure the bobble isn't wrapped around too many times because this will cause discomfort for your client. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to take our first bun ring and our Kirby grips. And we're going to take the bun ring and put it right the way through the hair. When you're applying your pins, what you need to do is make sure you apply them as close to the hairline as possible. So what you don't want to do is you don't want to apply the bun ring from right at the top and then drag it down, as what this will do will put pressure on the customer's head. Can you see the way I'm putting the pins in nice and flat, close to the hairline? And when you're doing this, you want to try and pick up as much of the hair along the hair shaft as possible, and that will grip like as much as possible. Always give your bun ring a little bit of a wobble to make sure how secure it is. You'll see in a second I'll give the head a little bit of a wobble. And what you're looking for, there it is, what you're looking for is for the actual head to shake rather than the bun ring, and that's how you know it's going to stay secure. This is the main part of like the hair. This is what is going to keep the hairstyle nice and secure. It's the main part. If this is wobbly, the whole hairstyle is going to wobble. So step 1, if you're going to do something wrong, if this isn't secure at the end of this hairstyle, your customer's going to be complaining, saying it's wobbling all over the place. Now next, what we're going to do is we're going to take our second bun ring and we're going to place it right the way over the top. So you can see when the model is looking forward, you can see how this frames around the front of the face. With a lot of the styles that I create, you need that extra bun ring over the top because that one bun ring that gives you like that ballerina look effect, it's just not big enough for how glamorous the girls want to look. So what you're going to do is you're going to apply pins in 3 places when we're applying this. So you can see the first part is right the way along the top, and this is going to attach the 2 bun rings together. The second part is basically going to attach the second bun ring to the head. And again, make sure you put the pins in nice and flat. And then the third part, we're actually going to smooth down the sides of the bun rings, and this is going to stop like edges from the bun rings hanging out at the sides. It's just going to give that smooth finish and make the bun rings almost look as one, so it'll look a little bit more flush for when we put our ponytail on next. Then what we want to do is we're going to take our straighteners and we're going to put a soft bend right the way through the ends of the mid-length on the ends of the hair. So you can see I'm taking my straighteners and really smoothing out the top parts of the hair. This is to make the hair starting to look glossy. You'll see later on the tips and techniques that you'll learn on how to make someone's hair look really glossy. But smoothing the hair from such an early stage is going to really help it. You can see as I'm turning the straighteners, I'm putting a tiny little bit of pressure on it, so you can see it's not like the hair is like jumping at any stage. The hair's smooth right the way through. Also, people always ask, why do you roll the hair back up into the straightener? What happens is the heat, with the straighteners being on full heat at 235 degrees, the heat from around the straightener will carry on curling the hair, so it's almost like you've got a pin curling. You can see I'm taking small stages, I'm working down the hair and I'm feeding almost the hair through the straightener, so it's never going to get caught. I see a lot of people where the hair actually gets caught through the straightener, but just release your pressure and turn them a little bit more. And you can see we're rolling it up again, and that motion where you can see where I smooth the hair around, that helps the hair look smooth as well. So next what we're going to do is we're going to take our pony piece, we're going to open the clasp out as big as possible. This is going to cover the biggest surface area of the bun ring, that's why we do that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to place the pony right the way over the top. Now you don't want to apply the pony too far forward. You want the circle section of the pony to sit flush against the back of the bun ring. And then what we're going to do is we're going to apply pins right the way along the side. So you should be able to see around the edge of the ponytail there's a net. You're going to feed your pins through the net and then into the bun ring. So at this stage, no other pins are going to be attached to the actual head or be touching against the scalp. Everything is going into the bun ring. I'm going to pull it forward a little bit because we do want to make sure as much of the bun ring is covered with this pony piece. We just don't want to apply the pony too far forward so that it looks too top heavy, if that makes sense. So I'm just applying the pins either side, making sure that this pony is attached to that really secured bun ring on top of the head. So now that I'm swinging around, you can see the toggle sticks out of the ponytail. We need to basically hide that. So what you're going to do is pull on it ever so slightly, and then you're going to tuck it underneath the net. And then what we're going to do is we're going to pin and hide that and keep it nice and secure. So no toggle or wires or anything are going to like fall down from this. You can see I'll just kind of spruce out the ponytail a little bit, and this is just for me to be able to get a gauge on how much I've got to still cover of the natural hair, because you can see at the top of the bun ring you can still see a tiny little bit of that. I will pull it forward slightly in a second. Okay, so next what we're going to do, this is one of the most important aspects of the hair up to make it actually look like it's natural hair. We get so many people who kind of frown upon wearing a false piece, but once you see how these are applied properly, they look amazing. It's this step that's going to help make it look like that. So what we're going to do is smooth the natural hair. It's only a really thin section. We're going to replicate the curl that's on the ponytail. So you can see, first of all, I put it nice and smooth the hair out, and then we've done a curl just at the end. And then you're going to let that piece of hair flow right the way over the top of the ponytail, and we just want to secure it. So we don't want this piece of hair flying all over the place. We want to make sure it's nice and secure. So what I do is put a pin either side of it to basically jam in that hair. You don't want any strands of this hair getting loose. And then once you've done that, what you can do is separate the hair. Now sometimes you get people that have got like highlights, so your hair might be a little bit lighter than the actual pony, so this is where you take your comb and you'd really blend that through. So next what we're going to do is we're going to start building the actual swirls up into the updo. Now what I normally say is the curlier you want your style to look, the smaller you take your sections. But for this particular style, we are going to do it quite curly, but we've got a lot of the natural hair that's going to act as the curlier parts around the outside. So I'm kind of going to take maybe around I'd probably say between 8 to 12 sections, and you can see we're going to create little figure of eights and we're going to pop these pins in. Now this is one of the questions I always get asked. How do you make it so that you can't see your pins, and why does it look like it's not really securing a lot of the hair? It's like almost I'm popping the pins in. There's a technique that I use where I'll twist each section of hair as I'm actually putting it on. So if you can imagine when these pins are going in around a twisted piece of hair, it doesn't necessarily need to hold every strand of hair. So the best tip that I could give for this is twist the hair ever so slightly in the direction that you're going to want it to sit, and then your pin doesn't need to hold as much hair in it. When you're actually applying your pins, what you need to do is you're kind of almost jamming them straight down into the bun ring. Again, you don't want any more pins kind of holding onto the hair, you want them in the bun ring. So we're going to twist our little sections of hair and we're going to start wrapping it to cover around the bun ring. You can see the way there is a small section of the bun ring still on show at the top. My priority is really making sure that we get that covered. So in my second section, I'm taking it right the way over the top. You can see I'm going to ever so slightly twist. That's what I'm doing. I'm twisting the hair, flattening it down where it's going to sit, and then the pin goes straight down into the bun ring. You might have a little bit of a problem putting the pin straight down at this stage because this is where you've got your clasp of the ponytail underneath. But if you do have problems, just move the pin around a little bit. Now you can see with this section, what I've ended up doing is I've split the leftover of that swirl into two sections, and this is how I'm going to create this curlier look. So I'm getting the bulk of the actual hair up in one section, and then with the leftovers of like the ends of the hair, that's when I'm going to split them into two, and then that way it's going to go up nice and symmetrical, but you're going to be able to have that little bit more of a play of where you actually want these curls to be able to sit. So I'm working out roughly how much hair I've got left. You'll see me do this a lot. I'm always kind of weighing up what sections have I got left to work with. Always try and take roughly the same amount of sections here for each one. So for however curly you're doing it, you can see I'm splitting this hair into different sections, but they roughly look around the same. This is just going to make your hair look not symmetrical. It'll just make, you know, you won't have any little straggly bits hanging down, or you won't have any bits that look too thick with really chunky curls hanging down. Everything's going to look similar. So you can see on this side, again, you can still see a little bit of that bun ring. Now what I always do, try and use your longest sections from the underneath of the ponytail. The ponytails come layered, so you can see it's a lot longer with that underneath section than the sections that are layered on the top. So with your length, you want to bring it round from the bottom and then bring it up into the top of the bun ring. You can see me wrapping it round. Now you can see I'll wrap it quite flat around the bun ring as well, just for this first stage, because we want to make sure it's going to keep covering over the top of that bun ring. You can see I've twisted, and then what I'm going to do is pop the pin right the way down. So I almost pin a little bit across, and then what you do is actually pop the pin down into the style. Then you can see again I'm using the technique of splitting the hair into two sections, using my fingers to always twirl these curls into shape. With the synthetic ponies, they're going to come with this curl already on it, so you don't need to restyle this curl. Even though we're going to make it look like a big curly updo, you don't need to restyle the curls in the synthetic hair. We only need to curl the natural hair. Make sure when you're doing this stage, you do take a look from the front that you've got evenly like a curl sitting around the front and then either side as well. It's not like I'm aiming to do this really symmetrically, but you do almost, if you place it on the left side, your next section will be placing it on the right. And again, you can see I'm working out now how much hair have I got left to work with and how many sections am I going to take that in. You can see I'm weighing up whether I should do this in 1 or 2 sections. I think it'd look nice in either, to be honest. So you can see I've gone for just the 1 section, and what I'll more than likely do is pin that in, make sure that's nice and secure as the bulk of it, and then we will split the ends into 2. You can see I'm going to create these swirls with the leftovers of the hair. Try and make sure at this stage, because the last sections that we'll have just worked with was more to do with framing around the front of the face, make sure these sections that we're about to work on are more filling out. It's like curls that you're definitely going to see from the back. You can see with this one, sometimes you'd have a curl that like there's nowhere for it to go. So what you can do is you can place it over the top of one of your existing curls if there's too much going on. You can see, again, I'm just using the pins to go straight into the bun ring. You get this nice feeling of secureness when you know that the bun ring is there, because it goes through the hair and then you feel it right to the middle of the bun ring. You can see I'm doing it there. Now that's the natural hair. At the bottom, we've got 2 sections left of the synthetic, and that strand right down the middle is actually the natural hair. You can see I'm going to leave that till the end. And you can see also I'll move small sections of hair out the way to be able to place these swirls exactly where I want them, so you can feed the hair through if it's not going to fit just naturally where you need it to go. And the ends of that curl, it actually looks quite nice. I think I do end up leaving that down. If your curls look nice hanging, then leave them. That's completely fine. So last section, you can see I need to just fill out on the left hand side. We need a little bit, and you can see you've still got the option to split it into 2. Sometimes you might have to go thinner sections with this, because you might find 2 places that you kind of need to have a curl. So you can see with this one, further towards the back and then more towards the front, I need decoration on both sides. So you can see the way I've split that actually into 2. If a pin doesn't go in well, like what you've just seen there, take it out, run your fingers back through the curl and start again. Don't just keep putting more and more pins in, because this is what's going to make it look like you can see the pins. So it's good that you've actually seen there where if it doesn't go in first time, just take it out, restyle the hair by running your fingers through it and then pinning it back in. You can see it's gone in perfect there. So now you can see it's roughly filling out symmetrically right the way over the back of the head. And then with the ends of that one, I've actually put them back together. Now what we're probably going to do, I'm just showing you it, is we're going to start working on the natural hair. So with the natural hair, even though this style looks like it needs more curls at the bottom at this side, what I want you to do is kind of visualise like a ball on top of the head, and if it doesn't look like a round ball, that's where you need to fill it. But what you need to visualise when you're doing this is that this is now the natural hair that we're working with, and with the natural hair we want it to basically sit right the way through the mid, like the centre of the ball, because what you don't want to do when you're creating these styles is have it so that the synthetic hair is the main bit on show, and then all the nicest parts of the hair, which is normally the natural hair, it's all hidden underneath. So what you're going to see me do is I'm going to curl each section, making sure that it looks nice and smooth and glossy. And what we're actually going to do is we're going to feed these sections of hair higher up through the hair. So it's not going to sit at the bottom, even though we need the hair there, because you can see we've got this ring of hair that's left out. They're going to fill out the bottom bits. So these centre parts of the hair, the natural bits, these are perfect like sections of hair that are going to like, this is what's going to make people look and think, oh my god, you can't even tell she's got a hairpiece in. Her hair looks so glossy, like how can you tell the difference? So you can see the way I've lifted that up, then we're splitting it into two over the top of the synthetic pony, and this is the tip that's going to really help make the hair look like it's not a pony piece. We want to disguise this as much as we can. The only time we wouldn't disguise this is if someone had really bad colour damaged hair where the ends were really like split ends. I'd literally just hide that at the bottom. And then the other reason where we might not want the ends of the natural hair to be out on show is if we're doing almost like a colour change, where if someone's got ombre on the ends of the hair that they want to hide, you'd literally just tuck the hair away and keep the synthetic on the top. But to get the best effects from this, you want your natural hair sitting over the top. So I'm just going to repeat the steps, making sure we get a really nice springy curl. Now, I know we've already curled this hair really early on. I always do this, it's like a habit that I've got into. I feel like I can get a curl nicer second time round, and also I can curl this piece of hair in the exact direction that I want it to go, whereas the first time I do the curl, it's just putting like a little bit of a bend on it. So you can see I'm getting it nice and tight and curly, and we're going to basically feed this section of hair right the way through to sit in where I've just pointed there. So you can see I'm taking my fingernails and I'm feeding the piece of hair higher up through the hair. And you can see how also as well, the other thing that's good about this is what's going to start making the hair look more springy curls. I normally call them springy curls, because what you don't want at this stage is almost like pieces of hair popping down that look like they're definitely going to fall out. So you can see how curly that I've got that. It's definitely not going to go straight by the end of the night, and that's what we're looking for. You almost want to make these look too curly so that even if they did drop out slightly, they're going to look a little bit softer. And then we're going to repeat for the last time and build it even bigger on top. Always ask your customer as well and get a gauge of like how are they feeling. Sometimes when I'm doing this stage, a customer might turn around and say something along the lines of, oh, is it not going to be higher? So remember, you've got this hair, you could take that hair right on top if you fed it right the way through, whereas on the other side of it, you might have a customer that would turn around and say, oh, this is feeling really big. So if someone's thinking that it already looks really big, you can still use these sections of hair to fill out the bottom where I'm basically putting it there. So always talk to your customer and find out like how are they feeling about the work that you've done so far. Are they comfortable with it? Do they want any more curls on top, or are they wanting more curls hanging down at the bottom? I think when I'm creating this style and I'm personalising it for people, I normally do ask the question, do you prefer it where your curls are more pinned flat to the bun, or do you want it where it's got loads of curls hanging down? So you can see at this stage, this is where you start getting more of a choice of like, how am I going to personalise it for what this customer's saying. There's nothing worse than a customer asking for a big curly updo and you getting the complete wrong end of the stick and creating the opposite of what they're wanting. So it's really important to ask the question, do you want your curls pinned flat to the bun ring, or do you want it where it's got loads of curls? I normally say like cascading, I can't pronounce it, cascading down into it. So that's what I'd normally say. And also bear in mind, some of the curls are going to drop a little bit as the night goes on. So if someone's asking for loads of curls down, I normally say I wouldn't do too many at this stage, because even within an hour of them leaving, they are going to soften up once the wind touches it. So next, what we're going to do is we're going to start building the hair from the outside of the hair up. Now this is a great thing to be able to offer your customers, because they can basically see the size of the bun that you've created, and then they've now got options of what you want to do with the back. Now if someone's asking for a hairstyle and they're looking at what we've done so far, they might think this looks massive, but with this front section that we've got, we are going to be able to back comb that almost half the size of the bun, which is going to make it look smaller. So always think ahead and think, are you going to lose how big the bun looks by how much volume they're asking for at the front? So we're going to start at the bottom sections. I always tend to work from the bottom when I'm creating these looks, because I feel like I like filling out the bottom sections, and then you've got more to play around with when you come to the sides. So what we're going to do is each section, take small square sections, we're going to fill out, split each section into two, and where I'm pointing my comb there, that's where we want to add the back comb. This is where we don't want to see this gap. So you can see I've split it into two and back combing the side that is closest to the bun. And then the piece that I'm touching at the bottom there, which is a little bit curly, we're actually going to take our straighteners and we're really going to smooth this out. But we're going to do it in a way that it's going to almost look like you've given the client a curly blow. So we're going to put a nice bend on the end. So I'm going to ask me model to hold the other piece of hair out the way, and that's fine if your customer doesn't mind. Now what we're going to do is, you can see I'm not just straightening this section of hair, you can see I'm almost putting a tiny little bit of a bend on it. You can see the section was a little bit too thick there, so I've just passed a little bit more hair. Now this section at the bottom, watch what I do with the straightener. It's not straightening it, it's putting a bend on it. So you're smoothing it out, and can you see the way I'm now curling it? Now in a second I should lift the piece of hair up into the direction, just so basically the hair is going to get smoothed in the direction that we want it to go. So you can see when I lift this piece of hair up, all them small sections underneath, they should look a lot smoother because of the direction that we've straightened the hair out in. You can see I'm taking the whole thing and we're going to get a nice curl on the whole section. You can see the way I'm starting to angle the hair in the direction that we're going to want the hair to flow in. So I'm lifting it up and I'm putting this curl right on the ends of it. Just be really careful of any of the synthetic pieces. You can see I've got a small section there that's kind of in my way. If at this stage, I possibly should have just pinned that up out the way, so I could have got even closer to that bottom section. So if anything like that bugs you, just remove it out the way. You can see I'm going back in and doing a little bit more back comb. You need to really make sure it's nice and reinforced, otherwise you're going to end up seeing gaps when you turn the customer to the side. So for the next couple of minutes, it's quite repetitive, the video, so I thought I'd just talk a little bit more about hair types to everyone, because at this stage you might be thinking, oh, this hair up doesn't look the same as the one in the picture if you're recreating these looks. Now, what I always do when I'm explaining when someone comes in and gets their hair done, at the very start of the consultation, I would normally weigh up whether is it realistic for this customer to be able to get the style that they're requesting based on what natural hair they've got. Even if sometimes people are getting ponytails, it's not always definite that they're going to be able to get the exact same look. But what you aim to do is basically try and offer them what you think could be the best version of that style that you can offer them. So for instance, if someone come in and they did have really short snapped hair to the point where the sections that you can see I'm working on right now were that short, which sometimes we do get, they wouldn't meet if you pulled them up to meet the bun ring. You need to be able to think of a way to be able to do it. I mean, I've had girls that come in and ask for this style that have basically got like undercuts on the underneath of the hair, so you're always having to basically work around what you can make of the hair. So what I ended up doing with the girl with the undercut, we actually still were able to put the hair in the top section. I mean the centre section, we were able to put that in the bobble, so we could still get the middle section. Then with the fringe section that we had at the top, rather than us actually needing to, like, we didn't have the hair on the underneath to add up into it, what we needed to do was use the hair from the top section, like round the fringe, and then what we done was blended it almost tighter back down and pinned it flat. So there is always ways around getting these styles done. So that's just one of the things. Another problem that you might end up feeling like you have is opposite end of the scale. If someone has just got that much hair that you feel like your hairstyle is going to end up taking you like 5 extra hours, which, believe me, I've been there. We've had girls who come in and they do sometimes say, oh, you're not going to be able to do anything with my hair because it's touching the bum, and so many hairdressers have turned them away, but you remember that you always can. With the girls that have got hair that's like a horse's tail, just try and backcomb as much volume out of their hair as possible, and that's going to take the weight out of it. But sometimes, again, with someone with massively long hair, if it was really thick with the section that I'm working on at the moment, what I would actually do is just completely take a massive big chunk of it, so it's basically taking a lot of your time away, flatten it completely in and wrap it around that bun ring. So that's a little hack for if you did have someone with loads of hair that you, like, say if you were in a rush and you were thinking, oh my god, I've only got booked however long you've got to do your hair up, and your next customer's sitting waiting. There is ways that, like, you can disguise this hair so that it's not going to change the style in any way. In some cases it actually makes your hairstyle look better, because sometimes when someone's got too much hair, curls on top of curls on top of curls, it just ends up looking too much and you end up losing the actual style that you're going for anyway. So that's a little tip for when you're doing that. Other tips for different hair types at this stage, something that I do quite a lot. I do have a lot of customers who come to me specially because they've got really thin hair. So it's not like they've got short hair. They might have really long hair, but it's thin, almost to the point where you can see their scalp. So something that I do quite regularly is I will actually paint onto the scalp, which I will actually show you in more of my tutorials. But what you'd need to basically do at this stage is you'd repeat the steps that I'm doing right now, but what you'd be doing is for every section that you'd be working on, you'd be either using a makeup brush and a little bit of the same colour eyeshadow as the hair to paint to the scalp, and that will give the effect the hair is thicker. Or you can buy these sprays, which in other tutorials I'll show you in a little bit more detail. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to take the section out, which again I feel is one of the most important parts, is blending this top section in. I find when I'm teaching people, a lot of people say, I don't know how to blend the top section into the hairstyle without it looking like you can see bumps and lumps and wonky sections. So this is what we're going to do. You're going to split a small section right the way across the front, and depending on how much height you want in it, you're going to back comb just a tiny little bit into it. Now, I've mentioned earlier on in the tutorial that depending on how big they want this hairstyle to look, sometimes I encourage a smaller bump to go with a bigger like bun, because if you do both of them big, sometimes it can look a little bit overpowering and you don't really know which is the main focus on the style. So to me, getting a balance between a medium sized bump, medium to small, rather than a massive bump. If a customer was to say at the start of the consultation that they knew they definitely did want a massive bump, there would be the alternative of putting a third bun ring higher up, which I will try and show in another tutorial for you all. This is more for the really extreme brides, or say if someone's wearing like a really heavy thick tiara, that like these two bun rings just wouldn't really make the cut or make it stand out, whereas this is just a simple classic 2 bun ring curly updo. So I'm starting to put the back comb into the top of the bump. Make sure your comb is straight when you're doing this. If you've got a wonky comb, or you take your sections too wide, your back comb will end up wonky because you won't be putting the same amount of pressure throughout the whole sections of the hair. And make sure you're lifting the hair right up. So again, you can see I've put the back comb at the top of the hair, and then straight behind the section we're going to smooth that out. So it's really important to get the rest of the hair prepped. You can see I'm just going to put a small curl on the ends of this part of the hair. And what we're going to end up with is almost like a section of hair that's all prepped for us right the way over the top, and we're just going to end up with the fringe left out and 2 sections around the side. But it's about really making sure that this side bit, this top section, blends nicely into the bump. So make sure you're splitting your sections with enough that you're going to back comb anything that you're not going to see, which is where we're at here. I've left a section in front of that to just smooth right the way out.
God, give me a sign or I have to give up. I can't do this anymore.
So this is the part that we're going to smooth. So with this last section, you're going to work a little bit differently with this. Rather than putting your back comb on it, you'll see I'll take my straightener and almost pull the hair forwards as you're bringing it round. So you're pulling the hair up and round, and what that's going to do is it's going to create almost a mold on the top of the hair, which is going to look like it's got that really nice big volume. So anyone who has like any hairlines at the front where they'll part, this is a really important section to work on, because if you don't do this, the bump will basically just part. So it's really important that you almost glue into place using your straighteners the direction of which you want the hair to flow back into this, and you can see it's giving it that really glossy, soft finish. So we get asked a lot of questions about how can you create volume and it still look big and shiny. Well, this is exactly the technique that we use for every single one of our hair ups that we do. So you can see now what we're doing is, this is the problem what a lot of people get. They can't hide the part. So can you see the way I'm pulling down at the sides, and then automatically that parting that you're seeing when you're struggling with your hairstyles, it disappears. So it's all about making sure that all the hair's prepped over the top but not pinned yet, and then you've got the ability to be able to just loosely pull it and tweak it so that it looks soft. And that's the other thing, that people don't want these bumps where they look really big and strong and hairsprayed. People want them looking like their hair is naturally flowing back. So that is the best tip for when you're doing that. So you're going to back comb the sections underneath, smooth the hair with volume over the top, look at it in the mirror and from the side before you actually decide to pin. Use the hairspray to keep the hair in place, and then what you can do is tweak it like what I'm doing now, and then softly pin over the top. You can see how natural it looks. And then this gap that we've got at the side now, you can almost see where the hair is going to flow back into it, because it matches the bottom section and the top section. They both flow, so there's just a gap that we need to fill in. So what we're going to do next is we're going to blend the top ends of this bump over the top of our hairstyle. Now again, you've got the choice. If your customer is wanting more curls around the front, keep this around the front. If not, you can let this more flow around the back. You can see as I'm pinning it, it normally will just fall into place exactly where you want it to. It's so trial and error with this situation, so don't try and force a piece of hair to sit somewhere that it's not going to. Let it just fall, and if it looks nice, keep it, which obviously that section doesn't. If it doesn't, move it around. You can see you can just keep tweaking it until it feels comfortable. I'm still playing around with that little top section, because you can see before I've done that, it's just looking that tiny little bit top heavy. So yeah, now that it's been moved, it just blends into the style that little bit more. It's all about making the hair look like it fits around the ball nice and flush, which the ball is the bun ring. And you can see I'm going to go around and start tweaking it. This is why I don't spray too much as I'm going along. If you spray and you pin too much at this stage, it would all start falling out, whereas I've left it with the ability to be able to just give it a bit more of a flexible finish, where I can change some of the swirls going into different directions. So you can see as I'm twirling around, at this stage what you should be doing is weighing up, like, where are you going to put your last pieces. On the last side we've just seen, you could see exactly where the hair is going to flow, whereas on this side you can see at the top it's not been softened yet. So first thing you're going to do is fill out the hair where you can. So you can see I'm going to soften this top section before I start adding more hair into the sides. So when I'm pulling the hair out there, that is me weighing up exactly what hair have I got left to work with, and roughly how many sections am I going to be able to fill this side gap with. So you can see they're a little bit more clear. There's just a gap that we need to fill. So again, I'm going to start from the bottom and work our way up, and this is going to help us fill the hair out to the fullest potential that we can. So we're going to do, same as always, back comb the section that we're not going to see, Get it nice and taut right into the root. When you're back combing, if it's not filling out that gap, it's not doing the job properly for you. So make sure you're actually watching it where you're actually filling. So you can see I've filled in that gap. We're going to take the straighteners and smooth the mid-length of the hair with a little bit of volume into it. You can see how I'm swirling the hair around into it there. It's about giving it that little bit of a bend on the top. And then once you're happy with the mid-lengths, then put your curl on the ends, and that's going to prepare the hair ready for it to go into part of the updo. So you're never going to have any straight bits that are going to be in your way. You can see I'm going to blend that little section going right over the top. So you can see I'm giving the hair almost a little bit of a push when I'm putting the hairspray on. That's because I'm moulding the hair into the shape of where I want it to sit. So it's almost another way of being able to create the hair to make it look thicker. So can you see when I'm pushing the hair slightly? That's because when I put the pin in, I'm going to put the pin in when the hair is pushed slightly. So it's going to give it that little bit more of the effect that it's got more volume into it. Again, slight twist before you put your pin in. Then poke it right into your bun ring. Use your fingers to neaten the ends of the curls and then add that up into your hairstyle. You can see how I'm just letting that natural curl just drop into it, putting a little bit of spray on it so it stays now where I want it to. And now you'll be able to see I'm going to spray the underneath, and then also what I'll do is just pull out slightly on it just to even it into the hairstyle. I must do that in a minute, but it needs to be done. Can you see the way that last section that we've just put back, it looks too strict at the moment, so it needs just a little bit of a soft pull on the ends of it, just the same as what we've done on the top. So working now with our next section, we're going to repeat the exact same steps again, but we're just going to fill in this gap. So if you can imagine when you're working lower towards the bottom, it's not going to be as steep, but what we need to do is we need to make sure that as we work higher, going up to meet the bump, the gaps in between almost meet. So we want to make sure that we're making sure we pull on these edges just so that everything blends in. And then what ends up happening at the end, it ends up looking like steps almost going into it, but it's strands of hair. At this stage you can see, before I move on to the next stages, I'm weighing up the whole hairstyle. So I'm looking at, say, that section there, I'm thinking, shall I put it up, shall I keep it down? It's not looking perfect with it. Yeah, you can see I'm going to pin it up a little bit. Sometimes you just need to take a little walk around your hairstyle, and almost, sometimes it sounds strange, but I almost close one of my eyes so you can only see it with one eye, and things tend to pop out to you that you think that needs changing, it's sticking out too much. Sometimes you don't notice these things until you take a picture of it. So that's another little idea, like when you're taking your pictures, I more do that at the end of the hairstyle. I'll take a picture, and then if anything's standing out that looks like it's sticking out too much, then I'll blend it in. So you can see with this section, I've just actually placed the section of hair in the direction where I feel like it needs to go before I've put my back comb on, and that's just to check that it's actually going to work before I do it. You can see I've back combed, smoothed the ends of the hair, and then I'm scooping out the section that's going to basically sit smooth over the top. I'm going to curl them both together. So it's important now that this looks really glossy. I'm going to pick the two up together, and we're going to do the curl together, because this will end up going back as one piece. So now you can see that fills the gap that we definitely know we needed. So I'm just going to pull on it so it makes it that little bit softer. Then we're going to lift some of the curls up and feed it through, because again, it's about making it look like we don't want to see where any joins where the hair goes, and you can see how that flows right back into it. And with that pin, you're going to pin that where the piece of hair kind of will sit over the top. So pin it anywhere that you know you're not going to see the pin underneath. So I've made sure I've pinned that one where I know that other section of hair that we fed it through is going to sit over it, and that way you get that gorgeous look where it kind of glides back into it. She's looking gorgeous. So now that we're working around, I call this like the hairline, we're going to basically work on this and get a little bit soft. Now this is where your options come into place with like your client's needs. So I always say, like, you might have a client that has like needs their ears covered, or needs a bit of their forehead covered, or they might need it back off the face. People have different like face shapes and head sizes and different things, so you need to make sure that you're talking to your customer about what is it that they actually need to make them feel comfortable. So with this first section, I'm kind of weighing up, do I want to add this into the back of the style, or would I like to have it down as curls? So you can see I'm playing around with the section a little bit. I'm going to add this into it, and hopefully I am going to soften that little section going into it as well in front of it. But you can see at this stage, there is no set rules. It's about what actually looks nice. So when you're working on this section, try and look at it and think, does anything make her head look an odd shape? Does she need more hair around the front of her face? And just work on each individual client's needs. Your customer will normally tell you exactly what they want, and if they don't, you plant the seed for them of what you think would be nice. Sometimes people, especially our prom girls, they're a little bit too shy, or they don't feel confident enough telling you. So I always give my advice, but if someone's saying that they would like their fringe or their hair a certain way, I'll always go with what they're saying, unless I was to show them something that I think looked better, with the option that they could still have it the way that they would originally think. And that way it's opening people's minds a little bit more to, one, what maybe might suit them a little bit better, and two, to trying something new that like they've never even thought before. But we all know as hairdressers, our customers are normally quite stuck in the ways and know what they like themselves, so I do take their advice on what they suit. So we're starting to just curl all the small sections of hair around the front. This is really popular for like more of the effortless type of look. If someone's got nice shorter broken bits of hair, it's not necessarily a problem. A lot of the time it makes the hairstyle look nicer because it falls shorter and it's not really thick. The problem that you have sometimes with these type of styles with the girls that have got really long hair is that they're asking for curls out round the front, but they've got really thick hair and they've got no layers at all, so it can be quite problematic. Normally what I would do is curl them as much as I can to see how much weight we can take out of the curl and see how much they drop, and either give them the option to have them longer, or what you can do is almost do a little bit of a pin curl and then let the curl drop, so you'd be hiding half of the length of the hair underneath. But with our model today, she's just got short hair. It's not very thick, our model's hair around the front, so it was quite a struggle to try and make it look thicker. But you can see I'm back combing and curling, and then I'll actually pull down on the ends so that it sits nice around the front. You want to make sure you're lifting quite a lot of volume into the fringe when you're doing this as well. So you can see when you're doing your fringe, most people would think they'd just like do a curl on the ends of it, but what I'm actually doing is you pull it in the opposite direction that you want it to sit, and what that's going to do is it's going to lift that body right into the root. So you can see how I've lifted that volume in. Now, don't be scared by how much back comb is so around the front. I've made sure that I've left the section that's going to be smoothed over the top of it, and I have combed that little section out just slightly as well. So again, you're going to back comb, you're going to smooth the mid-lengths, and then you're going to curl the ends. It's the same step continuously. You can see we've got a nice tight curl sitting around the front. Normally what I'd do is pull out that front section just so that it fits nice around the front. You can see she's got that nice volume that we're going to be able to lift into it now, because we're going to do the top section. But even with the top section, you're going to add a tiny little bit of the back comb, not as much as the last section, but a little tiny little bit of it is going to help loads. So you're going to pull the hair in the opposite direction that you want it to flow. You're going to take your straightener and really push it in the opposite direction before you start putting your curl on it, and you can see how much volume that's going to lift into the top for us. Going to take the straighteners, lift it right the way up. Your straighteners should start where your back comb finishes, and then what we're going to do is pull the hair forward onto the fringe. So you're bringing it round onto the face. Can you see the way my body is quite in front of the model? I see a lot of people doing this and trying to do it from the side, and it just won't give the volume that you're looking for. So make sure you're standing from the front. And then you can see we're going to comb it in, and the hair should flow nice and round. You can reinforce your back comb in this section as well. Most people don't tend to want a massive fringe with this, they just want natural volume, which is what I'm creating. Then you can see I'm going to take my hairspray. Once I'm happy with how it looks, put a little bit of your hairspray on just to mould that into the shape. What happens is the hairspray will kind of glue that section of the hair. You can still tweak it and it will flatten any of the flyaway bits of hair as well. Then what we're going to do is work on the lower strands of the hair. Using your fingers, just put that little tiny bit of a bend on the end. Now what I want to do is I want to blend a little bit of the fringe going back into it. So you can see from the top section it looks like one section, but I've split it into two. That's what we want. We don't want like a big massive part in it. We just want it to look like the two sections blend back in different directions. Again, I'm pushing on the section of hair, and that's going to help make it give the effect that it's got more volume. And then we're going to blend that style back into it. You can see where I'm just testing where about I want it to flow before I pin it in. And then we're going to look around and pull it out softer and rearrange the curls for exactly where we want them to sit. So I'm pulling out curls that I want to like make stand out a little bit more, and then flattening down others just so that it all fits. So you can see the way I'm pulling down the sides of the bump, making sure everything flows into place, and I'll pull on the ends of the curls just to make sure that them bits look nice and soft going into it. Sometimes I'll go back over the fringe and do an even tighter curl. A lot of the time I'll say to the customer they might not like the curl that's in the fringe when it very first comes out because it will be so tight, but I'm planning on maybe 2 hours later it being like the nicest that it's looked. So whereas that looks really curly, almost too curly, I would sometimes say to people, do you mind leaving the salon with it that little bit curlier, so that by the time you go out in an hour or so it will have dropped to look like what it looked like maybe before I redone that curl. We do have to think as hairdressers how the curl's going to last, and I normally ask what their hair type's like as well, just so that I can find out does the hair hold the curl well or not. can see I'm pushing a little bit more volume into the top of the fringe there as well. That just really softens it, to be honest. And then I always just have a little play around with the fringe. Sometimes it can take you a few minutes to perfect exactly what's going to suit the customer best. I think when you're working on this section, don't be scared to spend a little bit longer there than at the back, because this is what the customer's got to be looking at all night. So I work quite quick when I'm working around the back, and then I will really take my time when I'm working around the front to make sure that that customer feels 100% comfortable with what it actually looks like from the front. So then what we're going to do is repeat exactly the same steps on the other side. So we're going to work from the bottom and we're going to fill out that gap. So take your section quite diagonal and then test whereabout it's going to sit. So you can see I've just tested it higher and then realised I actually need it to go a little bit lower. So I'm just retaking my section and testing whereabout that's going to sit. Then you can see I'm practicing where these two are going to go, and then I'm happy with that. So you can see I'll pull the second section forward and just work on the one from the bottom to begin with. So put your spray on the underneath section. Blend the hair round in the direction you're going to want it to sit. And then using your straighteners again. Really repetitive, but it's something that I always try and drill into when I'm teaching people. Try and drill it into your head when you're actually doing a hairstyle, to say back comb the root, smooth the mid-lengths and curl the ends of the hair. And you'll find on most of my tutorials that's the way I teach it. So if every single section of hair that you're going to not see is back combed, smoothed and curled on the ends, it's basically doing like the most perfect prep for your hair. So it's making it look thicker at the root, it's making it look glossy in the mid-length, and then it's putting this nice soft bend on the ends, which is the three main factors that I would say when creating this perfect hairstyle. And obviously when you're using the section that's going to sit over the top, then you would use your straighteners to sit over it. So you can see I'm pulling down and I'm practicing roughly whereabouts I want this style to go. I'm going to use a little bit of my hairspray to get rid of any of the flyaway hair, and then I'm going to push on the piece before I actually put the pin in, and that's going to add that little bit of extra volume. If when you push on the hair it doesn't look nice, it's possibly because the sectioning that you'll have taken wasn't the right angle. You always need to make sure you take the angle diagonally so that it actually will look like the hair flows nice going into it. So just remember that when you're doing that section. Always make sure you put a really tight curl on the sections that we're working on at the moment, because these are the bits that are going to drop out. So what we don't want to see is in an hour's time straight hair hanging down from a curly updo, because it just won't look nice at all. And you can see I'm just going to use my comb to flatten out any of them little stray bits that we just want to soften into it. It's looking good. So next what we're going to do is take our next section. You're going to leave your fringe section out. Always make sure you leave enough with that section. And you can see my last section that I'm working on here. I'm just going to test how it flows going back into it. So I'm going to back comb, smooth, take my section that's going to be smooth over the top of it. And then I'm going to take my straighteners, put a little bit of volume in that so you can see the way I'll lift the volume into it and blend it back, then pick the whole section up and then curl. then you can see it naturally will just glide and fall back. You might need to just place it underneath one of the other curls that we've done. So you can see I'm going to lift that up, place it underneath and feed the curl through. And you can see I'm just going around and softening the whole style, checking that I'm happy with where the curls are falling, placing them exactly where I want them. Even the way it is now, where the hair doesn't look really curly, sometimes I'd say to a customer, I think your hair would look nicer if it was more straight rather than curly. So sometimes when people would be kind of saying, I get asked all the time, well, what would you do if someone said they didn't like the hair? A lot of the time, it's sometimes less is more on people. So if something looks nice on someone, don't necessarily feel like you have to change it so much. To me, I've learned over the whole industry that the smallest tweaks that you can do to people's natural state of hair is probably what they're most going to be comfortable with, rather than giving them something that is completely dramatic or too much for what they're used to. It's all about small changes in the hair, but obviously based on what is going to last nice for them. When you're doing your curls that are going to sit around the front, make sure you pull on them. It sounds strange, but it'll actually make it sit nicer. So do your curl and then give it a little bit of a pull on the end. Then again, we're going to come round to the sides, adding our volume into it and making sure that the hair fills out around the front of the face. So lifting the hair right upright, making sure that we get as much volume into this as possible, and then swinging the hair around the front. You can see when I put a bend on the ends of this hair now, it should just fall nicely into place. Remember to be standing as far in front of the customer as you can when you're doing the fringe. I struggled with the camera doing this, and I normally would stand a little bit further forward. So make sure you bear that in mind when you're doing it. So you can see now I'm just tweaking whereabout I want the hair to sit. Make sure you pull the fringe when you're spraying it, mould the hair into the shape. And then what we're going to do is take a look around the whole hairstyle. I'm going to fill out or hide any pins that we can see. So when you're doing this section I mentioned before, just take a step back and actually look at anything that looks a little bit odd from the hairstyle. We're going to twirl the model around just so you can see right from the front. So that's the final look complete. For a quick recap on what we've done, we've basically taken a circle section from the centre of the head, add a bobble, add your bun ring, add your ponytail, create the curls around the bun ring, and then blend all the outside over the top. This is completely up to you, like how many curls up or down and how much fringe is up and down. Every single client is different, so remember that when you're recreating it. So it's now actually your time to go and recreate the look. So please feel free to tag us on any of our social media accounts with your recreations. I'm so excited to see what you can recreate. Thank you so much for watching the tutorial. I really hope that you've picked up some good tips on how to create better hair ups. If you do feel like you've learned from today's tutorial, don't worry, there's plenty more to come. I have got so much knowledge that I want to be able to share in how to create these gorgeous hair ups. I'm going to be regularly uploading videos of all these amazing styles that I've got in my head and that I've done in Peaches over the years. So I'll see you on my next tutorial. Thank you so much again, everyone, and I'll see you soon.
You're taking up a fraction of my mind. You're giving me that good shit, that makes me not good, that good shit.
Oh nah nah, just be careful nah nah. Love ain't simple nah nah. Promise me no promises. Darling, just hold on.
Purpose.